Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. We've got an interesting little side project that we're going to be talking about today with 38 Special and loading for our Manurhin MR73. Nice little French revolver, probably one of the best in the world. And first thing I want to say though is thank you to everyone who likes and shares and subscribes, leaves a comment. All that stuff helps with the algorithm and helps boost the channel up the rankings. In YouTube, it's kind of very difficult for a small channel to kind of move up the ranks. And so all of that audience interaction really helps quite a bit, and I appreciate all of y'all that contribute with that. It really helps. So with this project, well, the thing is right now is we have a lot going on with reloading. I have a 300 Blackout project going on in a single stage press, which I have filmed part 2 for, but the winter weather has been atrocious this year. And I just tried to get back to one of my ranges that I use in the wintertime and could not really get back there properly. And the other main range that I use the rest of the year, there's no way to really get in there unless you snowshoe in. And there's so much ice right now. So this week we have 3 days where the temperatures are climbing into the 50s. So I'm hoping that we can get a lot of that stuff melted and improves access. And so I can get that video finished up for the 300 Blackout guys. And then also too, we've got one of our 9mm projects that's about to kick off on the progressive press. And then a little side project that I wanted to get going too on the Lee app press, because now the Lee app press is open. And so I thought, hey, that is perfect for what we want to do here. A nice quick project to load some 38 Special. And so we're going to try to do most of that project on the Lee app press. And we also have my new RCBS bench mounted priming tool that we're going to be using as well. So I have that all done, and I'm also filming a review for that as well. So yes, lots going on. And of course, as you know, out there in the world right now, everything's pretty crazy. In the past 2 years, it's been pretty crazy. And the first 2 months of the year for me have been pretty crazy. So yeah, it's a pretty wild time right now. I can say that. So first up, the Manurhin, I believe that's how it's pronounced, according to Ian from Forgotten Weapons. And a lot of people say Manurhin. You know, that's probably okay too. But these revolvers, they came about in the 1970s, where the French GIGN, which is a counter-terrorist unit, they were looking for a revolver that would hold up to 150 rounds of .357 Magnum every day for practice. And they wanted a really nice, accurate revolver. So this company, Manurhin, they had been around for a while. They made copies of the Walther PP, and some other, I believe also the P38, which became the P1. I think they made some copies of those. They did some rifles that they licensed from SIG, actually, and a bunch of stuff. So these days, they're just involved in ammunition manufacture. They sold their revolver making business to a company called Chapuis Arms back about 25 years ago, and that company recently sold out to Beretta. And so now Beretta is importing these into the United States brand new for the nice price of around $3,300 to $3,600. And so yes, it is pricey, but they are exceptional revolvers that are very well made with some of the best steels. They last a long time. I believe there's one in the GIGN museum that has fired over 1 million rounds through it. And they're pretty damn tough revolvers, and they're extremely accurate. And I love shooting mine. I just have a blast shooting this revolver. Really enjoy it. I love shooting the Big Boom .357 Magnums. I like shooting the 38 Specials out of them. They're just a lot of fun to shoot. So this is the revolver we're going to be using for it. So in the future, I might do a video on, I know people have done, Ian from Forgotten Weapons, he's done some good videos in the past couple years on these revolvers, and other people have reviewed them. I might do a video maybe oriented around the practical experience of owning one here in the United States. and just some of the things that I've had to learn on my own, because there's not a lot of information out there on them in terms of like owning them, caring for them, and keeping them going. So we might get into some of that. So we'll look at that in the future. But yes, just awesome revolvers to shoot. This was always a grail gun for me, so whenever I was able to acquire one, it was a really big deal. It's one of my prized possessions that I own, and have no interest in selling it. And someday it'll go to my nephews or nieces, or if I have children of my own, they'll get it. So no plans on selling this ever. Great revolver. Love, love, love shooting it. So we want to do some fun stuff with this, and I've never loaded 38 Special before. Well, thing is, 38 Special, it's been around for a long time. So we recently got all of our brass from this past year that I shot. We got it all deprimed. We got it cleaned. I did an excellent series of videos almost a year ago on how I clean brass. So if you like really nice, clean brass, I go through 2 videos of my methodology and everything that I use. You can look back through my videos for how I do that, in my process of wet tumbling and how I tackle it. But I like my brass to be basically back to looking brand new. I find it's easier to identify defects and things like that. And it just, you don't run into issues with any excessive material in the primer pockets and all that stuff. So anyways, 38 Special, thing is for me, I have to say, is whenever I was growing up, all of the higher capacity 9mm were starting to become like the fad. And if you grew up like I did with movies like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, some of the Chow Yun-Fat action movies like The Killer, City on Fire, different stuff like that. The Beretta 92 obviously was, pretty, it was like kind of the thing to have at the time. So a lot of those types of, and of course Glock was coming about as well. A lot of those types of handguns were becoming the thing, and very quickly. And revolvers were kind of fading out very fast, especially law enforcement use, things like that. And so 38, whenever I was, in my teen years, young adult years, I just looked at it as kind of just a fuddy-duddy old cartridge. Didn't give it much mind at all. But, as you age and you go through life, some of these things you find out, they're perfectly valid, things. And 38s, as I, found out through my own practical experience and seeing what others do, they can be extremely accurate and a lot of fun to shoot. And so once I actually started shooting 38 Special, I developed quite an appreciation for it, for what it is. It's not like a super cartridge or anything like that, but if you read things like, I remember I read a book a couple years ago about a New York City police officer that was on the stakeout squad back in the late 60s, early 70s, and he used the 38 Special to pretty good effect, duking it out with bad guys, and he made some pretty phenomenal shots with his 38 that stopped a lot of bad guys doing bad things. So in the right hands, they can be very effective, and so it's certainly nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure. So 38s, like I said, I find them personally a lot of fun to shoot. And so it's something now I have a better appreciation of, and I'm sure as time goes on, I'm going to continue to have an appreciation of them, and probably get even more into it, and maybe acquire some more revolvers and such that shoot these. They're just fun. I just like them, and I think reloading for them is going to be pretty fun. So I've never reloaded for 38 Special before, and one of the things is right now with all the stuff that's been going on, and looking at my shelf and kind of looking at like, well, I should probably use up stuff that I already have before I go out and get new stuff, is years ago I kind of laid in a bit of a supply, and I've already partly used this box for 357 Magnum, but I laid in a supply of these when I started doing 357 Magnum, and so with these sitting on the shelf, I'm like, oh, this should make a pretty good accurate 38 Special load, I think. So let's just go ahead and use those. I mean, why just let them kind of sit there sleeping? So yeah, you know, with these sitting on the shelf, let's go ahead and use them and put them to work. So these Hornady XTPs, you know, these have been very popular bullets over time. They have an outstanding reputation for accuracy. They seem to work quite well. You know, it's a very common bullet to load, 158 grains too. You can get some lighter bullet weights with these as well. That's something I've not really thought about or given much mind to yet. It seems like kind of 148 grain to 158 grain kind of seems the most popular for 38 and 357 Magnum, but it's something, you know, I'm open to considering in the future for sure. Just hadn't really thought about it much. But these bullets, like I said, they have a great reputation for accuracy. They also have a nice little crimping groove there so that you can easily crimp into. So, you know, I don't know. They just, with them sitting on the shelf and being good quality, let's go ahead and use them. Now, the other thing is I was looking at a lot of load data, and there's a lot of different powders that you can use for 38 Special. And so, you know, one of the powders that kind of kept coming up in a lot of the conversations was Unique. And I have Unique sitting on the shelf. And again, it's a thing of, hey, let's use this stuff. So Unique is something I've loaded for 9mm and 45. It works just fine. It does seem to be a little bit dirtier than some of the other more modern powders, but you know, works all right. You know, for just regular target loads and stuff like that, I, you know, don't see any big deal with it really. It doesn't meter as precisely because it's kind of this flaky powder, and it doesn't meter as precise as some of these other powders out there. Sometimes I'll see a variation of 1/10 of a grain or so with them. But, you know, if you're just doing a target load, you're not really pushing it to the max. I don't really stress about that a huge amount. So, you know, but, yeah, I've used it for thousands of rounds and it works just fine. So there's other powders that I considered. Win 231 was another one I considered, and it's actually something that if this video series is popular, we can always look at doing some loads with that. But one of the things about Unique that seemed to be a common theme with all of this is that Unique loaded in 38 Special seems to produce a lot of very accurate loads. And because of that, I was kind of like, well, you know, I want to make a nice, good, accurate load with these. So, you know, let's go ahead and use Unique. So after looking at some of those other powders, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer to start with this. And like I said, I'm open to other powders. You know, never set on just one powder for anything. I'm always open to new ideas, but you know, I thought that might be a good way to go and start out with that. So I think a pretty good idea. We've got our XTP bullets, 158 grain, got our brass all nice and clean. We've got Unique, and we'll probably use cellular and below small pistol primers to ignite these babies. So, you know, should be a fun project. Also too, Sarco had these recently. These are the issue holsters for the Manurhin MR73 in France for the cops. So GK Pro is kind of the 511 of France, you could essentially say. So I managed to pick up one of those recently, so that was great because I've always been looking for, you know, a holster for that MR73. So yeah, it should be a fun project. We got a lot going on right now. So stay tuned, and we'll see y'all soon. Oh, and one last thing I forgot to add is we're going to be using the Lee app press. So if I didn't mention that before, so whenever I filmed the video series for this, we were also going to use the app and film using the app, so you can kind of see that in motion if you're interested in purchasing one of those presses. I've done a video on it before. I've done a couple videos actually on it. So this will be an opportunity to kind of see you, have you see the process with resizing and expanding. And then also too, we've got our RCBS bench mounted tool that we're going to be using as well for priming. And I know people have sized and crimped before with the Lee app press. So I'm not sure if we're going to use that. We might even use my Lee hand press. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, folks, stay tuned and we'll see you soon.